Again, I'm Tony Johnson, and with us today we've got Greg Russler, the National Agriculture Statistics Service for the USDA, the State Statistician for Wisconsin. He's been in his current position for about 4 years with the Ag Statistics Service, and he's been with the NASS for more than 28 years. He grew up on a 200-acre hog, corn, and soybean farm in South Central Minnesota. He graduated from the University of Minnesota, majoring in animal science, and then he received a master's of science degree in animal breeding from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Following the graduation, he worked for a pig improvement company at the 1,000 sow genetic nucleus swine herd in Spring Green, Wisconsin for about 2 years. And at that point, he wanted to change from production agriculture to follow his interest in working with numbers by switching to a career with the National Agriculture Statistics Service. During his 28-year career with NASS, he's worked at various locations, including Wisconsin, Washington, D.C., Kentucky, and Minnesota. And he's enjoyed getting to know farmers and learning about different types of agriculture through the years. He currently resides in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin with his wife, Jean, and he's got 2 adult children, Jason and Hannah. And during his free time, he enjoys playing disc golf. So welcome, Greg, and thanks for joining us at the Maple Hour. Maybe we could
Thank you for having me, Tony.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Maybe we could kick off by you just telling us a little bit about your background at the National Ag Statistics Service and your current work as Wisconsin State Statistician.
Sure. As you mentioned, I worked in, before I went into Washington, D.C., in 2 field offices in Minnesota and Kentucky, and kind of got a basic background of how NASS sets estimates and does surveys. When I was in headquarters, I worked in our survey administration division, overseeing a post-harvest chemical use survey and an ag practices survey. Worked a little bit in our statistics division on writing edits for the Census of Agriculture, along with doing sheep and hog estimates. And then I spent about 8 years in the training section in headquarters. I came out to Wisconsin in 2009, started out as a deputy director there. In 2018, regionalized, and that's when I became the state statistician. Now my primary responsibilities are outreach and public relations with farmers and different industry groups.
Okay, that's great. And thank you again for joining us today to do a little bit of outreach to the maple community here in Wisconsin. Could you provide just a little bit of history about the USDA's production reports and the egg census and kind of how that data is used in general, kind of regardless of the crop that we're looking at?
Sure. Excuse me. The Census of Agriculture was conducted in 1840 in 28 states in the District of Columbia. 170 years later, NASA is conducting a census in all 50 states and U.S. territories. Census, there's data available for more than 3,000 counties and 30,000 zip codes. And it's probably the most widely data set that NASS has. NASS is currently analyzing data from the 2022 Census of Agriculture, and we're planning on releasing the results in February of 24. You asked a question about how the data is used. It's important. It's kind of a snapshot of what's going on in farms during 2022 and kind of what the inventories are as of December 31st. The data is used for providing background for the Farm Bill and then also other ag policies. Without the data, politicians can't make informed decisions about how tax dollars will most effectively benefit agriculture. So it's good to have numbers there to help them make informed decisions. Also, universities use census data to most effectively develop research programs and who would benefit from the research, because you aren't going to have a maple specialist, say, like in Arizona. It'd be, a waste of money. So it kind of helps determine where crops are growing and making sure that research is being done in the right place. Companies use the data for determining supplies and equipment to produce, along where to have products and stores located. And the data is used by in farm succession planning, for example, developing programs that help older farmers transition or transfer farms to the next generation. So there's a whole variety of uses for census data.
Yeah, that's really helpful for me, and just thinking about the vastness of that data set when you get into all the different crops and what's all collected there. There's a tremendous amount of uses for it. I'm curious to kind of hone in on maple syrup production. How long has that been included in the USDA's production reports?
Sure. I look back, and the first maple report that I found, or some numbers, was from 1916. And that data is available on the NASA website. Unfortunately, the early maple data isn't available in our quick stats. Quick stats data goes back to 1992, but before that, there's scanned images or PDFs that you can look up. And just kind of a reference, in 1916, Wisconsin had 495,000 trees tapped, 139,000 gallons of syrup was produced, and the value of production was $149,000 worth. So,
wow, yeah, that's that's incredible. I'm curious. So the way the survey looks now, kind of the primary questions are looking at the number of taps, the yield, the production, and the price, and then looking at kind of the value and the price by the type and the size of containers used. Have the questions changed over time in the way that the data is collected?
Pretty much. For the overall, the main theme is getting the number of taps, the yield, and production, along with price data. Actually, for the 2023 maple survey, the questionnaire changed a little bit. We're no longer are asking questions about the size of containers and those type of things. And we no longer ask questions about length of tap season. Now we're and this suggestion or recommendation was from the International Maple Institute. We're asking questions about sap production along with syrup production, and a little bit more general as far as retail and wholesale prices. So it changed a little bit this past year.
Okay, yep, just recently. Okay, interesting. And broadly speaking, how has syrup production changed nationally over time, if we kind of take a big picture of the numbers across the U.S.?
Again, it's a growing industry, and I think what you see is that maple production, there's operations that have gotten larger, and it's a lot more specialized than it used to be. The equipment has changed, and the technology for extracting from trees and making syrup has changed. So I think technology has changed the industry quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about the kind of longevity of the data, how long has so you said from that initial 1916 report that Wisconsin was included in that. So we've got state-specific reporting all the way back then. Okay. And how has the production in Wisconsin specifically, is it kind of matching the national trends, or are there differences in the production trajectory over time here in Wisconsin?
Pretty much, Wisconsin's consistently ranked fourth in production nationally, and we've held that for several years now. Looking at the 2023 numbers, it's interesting. The number of taps in the state was 985,000 taps. The yield was 0.408 gallons per tap, and 402,000 gallons of syrup was produced this past year. This is down about 9% from 2022. Looking at price and value for 2022, Wisconsin maple producers received an average of $31.40 per gallon. And the total value of production in Wisconsin in 2022 was $13.9 million. So it contributes significantly to the ag economy in Wisconsin. Looking at sap sales in 2022, and this is actually the first year that we collected this type of data. Wisconsin producers produced about 1.5 million gallons of sap, and the average price of sap was 29 cents per gallon. As I mentioned earlier, NASS no longer is collecting data by type and size. That changed this past year. NASS started publishing in 2022 a retail price, and the retail price in Wisconsin was $52.70 per gallon. Wholesale price was $35.70. And then also we published a grade A and processing grade syrup produced. Wisconsin produced 414,540 gallons of grade A syrup and 29,460 gallons of processing grade syrup.
Okay, I'm just entering in the chat the link to the 2023 June crop report with the maple numbers for 2023 that are currently collected, highlighted on page 11 for everybody's reference. Yeah, but that's really interesting. I think, you know, the 2022 season was a really productive year, and most folks that are in maple syrup production probably wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, just given the experiences that folks had, the numbers go down this last season. I thought it was interesting to see kind of the differences in some of the states out east and the kind of reduction in total number of taps that they had, whereas Wisconsin continues to increase the total number of taps. And then the other thing that jumped out to me was just the production per tap here in Wisconsin being the highest nationally. As a couple of things that jumped out to me. Was there anything else that jumped out to you in the data from this last year?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. So,
okay. And then as far as, you know, looking at the trends and recognizing the dramatic impact that weather plays into production in any given year, you got any predictions for Wisconsin syrup production moving forward?
Actually, you know, we really don't, we report what happens and not really get into the prediction type thing. I think that be better answered by, you know, university specialists, that type of thing. And I'm sure, you know, climate will continue to have an impact on syrup production, both locally and nationally.
Yep, no, that's totally fair. I respect that. And maybe we can just close out the formal part of today's discussion by talking about the importance of the data to maple syrup producers, and then just talk a little bit about how producers can participate.
Sure. Basically, you know, knowing the value of maple production is important to the public, both at state level and national level, when providing research dollars to universities and things like that. If we didn't know the value of production, the dollars wouldn't be provided to universities for research and that type of thing. So that's really important to get a snapshot of what the contribution is of the industry to agriculture. And a good example about the data that local Wisconsin Maple Syrup Association used, I suppose, about 10 years ago, is the state legislature what had weight limits on the spring on the roads and those types of things, and they weren't going to allow maple producers to haul sap or syrup and those types of things. And the Wisconsin Association used our census data along with our production data to lobby and say, hey, this is an economic impact on the state, and they got the restrictions lifted. So that's one example of how it directly benefits people. And it gives a snapshot of, again, what the contribution of syrup is to agriculture in general. And, without it, you can't do knowing what the production is, you can't do effective marketing and those types of things.
Yeah, definitely. And before we make the plug to where folks can report their data. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just getting a question in here. I wanted to just ask you what your thoughts are on if you got any kind of an estimate of how much unreported production there could be in Wisconsin. Do you guys have estimates as far as maple in particular?
Not. That's kind of tough to do because, we try and get the maple data on the Census of Agriculture to get the number of producers out there. And we also publish on the census the locations of by county of the different producers and that type of thing. In Wisconsin, for our annual survey, we send out contact about 300 producers, and basically what the criteria is on the annual survey is a producer has to have more than 100 taps to get sampled. And then what we do is break the producers with greater than 100 taps into different size groups, whereas larger producers will get surveyed more frequently because they have the most impact on production, and the smaller producers will, might not get sampled as often. And we try to get a 80% response rate. So if a producer doesn't necessarily respond, someone else's report is going to be used to estimate for it and so on. And as you know, that they might not accurately reflect. So we encourage everyone to participate on our surveys to make sure we have accurate numbers.
Okay. All right. I just entered the data reporting portal URL into the chat here, and then I'm going to just launch our second poll here that's just asking folks about their experience with production data reporting. I'm going to leave that open and jump into some of the chat questions here. So we got a comment from Jim Adamski that the road bans have not been lifted in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Opportunity for some more data to weigh the case there.
Sure.
And then we got a question here from Scott for the yearly syrup production. How do you collect and estimate the number of gallons produced? Does that include only commercial producers and also those who produce for themselves, family, and friends?
Basically, as I mentioned, we survey producers with more than 100 taps or produce sap and those types of things. So we find out what type of what their end use, if they sell the sap or if they actually make syrup, and then we find out if they produce syrup, what type of syrup they produce and that type of thing, whether it's grade A or processing and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, and I'll just encourage anybody on the call to enter questions in the chat, or at this point, you're welcome to turn on your microphone and just ask that freely. I think it's kind of interesting, the big level takeaways as far as kind of a drop in nationwide production last year that was followed in Wisconsin, but to a little less degree. And then some of those other items as far as the kind of increasing tap numbers here in the state and the production per tap I thought were really interesting. I guess as we kind of close out here and wrap things up, what is the best way for folks to keep up to date with reports that are coming out? Just staying
Sure.
up with.
Sure. They can go to nas.usda.gov, and there's a links on there for signing up. You can have the reports emailed to you. If you go to the Wisconsin site, you can sign up for specific to Wisconsin reports, or you can sign up for our national reports. And if you're a producer that wasn't contacted on the census or didn't get a census form in the mail, you can sign up your operation by going to agcounts.usda.gov to enter your information, and then we'll get you in our survey program.
Just entering a couple of links in the chat. Okay. All right, so we're closing out the poll. And just make sure I got this link right. But yeah, with that, that ends kind of our scripted questions that we had. I'm not seeing any questions from the audience. I'm gonna start to shut things down here for the June Maple Hour. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us, Greg. I think, you know, a lot of this data, it'd be good to, yeah, just dive into the report and look at some of the charts. I think information is shared in a way that's pretty easy to digest. So we'll all continue to share those findings through some of our channels at the UW Extension program. So I put our Maple Hour homepage in the chat link. Again, that will have the recording to today's session with some of the links that we covered. We've got an email address, maple@extension.wis.edu in the chat, where you can feel free to reach out for any questions. And then also the email list. So we've got a monthly newsletter update where we'll be sharing some of the findings from the maple syrup production data and other parts of our program that are going on. So just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in today, and be sure to check out the maple.extension.wis.edu website for future updates from us. But with that, just want to say thanks, Greg, and if you got any final plugs.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, I just want to thank farmers or producers that have participated on our surveys. I know it takes time and it's a lot of times inconvenient, but again, the data is important, and we appreciate your participation on the surveys.
All right. Yep. I'll just reiterate that. Everybody take a couple minutes to contribute to the maple industry here in Wisconsin, and do that production reporting if you are a maple syrup producer. So, all right. Take care. We'll sign off for the June edition of the Maple Hour, and hope to see you all back next month when we're talking about sugar bush, forest health, and some of the pests and diseases that can impact the sustainability and production of your sugar bush. So take care and have a good day.